From the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt, this is ATN International News. First, the headlines. Tshisekedi considers sitting down with M23 rebels. Trump weighs travel ban on several countries. Court allows Trump to enforce ban on DEI programs. Pakistan separatist suicide attack. Donia nightclub kills 59. Zelensky appoints Andriy as chief of staff. Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi has long ruled out dialogue with the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels rampaging through eastern parts of his country. But a string of defeats and waning regional support have forced him to think again. Neighboring Angola caught many by surprise this week by saying Congo and M23 would sit down for direct talks in its capital on March 18, at a time when the rebels are still seizing territory which forces putting up weak resistance. Still too early to say who would represent Kinshasa in Luanda. Niger's junta, familiar with the decision, told reporters on Friday, in the latest move by regional military governments to assert greater control over resources. The request for the departure of Soraz was communicated Wednesday, the sources said. The Chinese officials were given 48 hours to leave, and one source close to the government said on Friday that they were out of the country. The other source, who was close to the affected companies, said the directors were asked to leave because of disputes over pay for local staff and the pace of work on projects. Separately, Niger's tourism ministry last week rescinded the license for a Chinese-operated hotel in Niamey, citing discriminatory practices. Spokespeople for the military junta to be reached also for comment. Niger last year signed a memorandum of understanding with CNPC worth 400 million to one jihadist attack in Mozambique. In October 2023, several survivors and relatives of victims of the attack are failing to protect its subcontractors. The complainants welcomed the move. Nicholas Alexander, a South African attack survivor, said the complainants had feared that Total was too big and too influential, too powerful to be investigated over, but is hoping to restart it. Total Energies will cooperate fully with this investigation, the company said on Saturday. It has earlier strongly rejected the accusations. The 7 British and South African complainants, 3 survivors and 4 relatives of victims, accused Total Energies, which was known as Total in 2021, of failing to take steps to ensure the safety of subcontractors before the assault. International Monetary Fund has received a formal request for a new program from Kenyan authorities. And now the Trump administration is considering a new travel ban. That's according to sources familiar with the matter and an internal memo seen by reporters, which shows 41 countries divided into 3 separate groups. The first group of 10 countries, including citizens from Afghanistan, Iran and Syria, Cuba and North Korea, would be set for a full visa suspension. The second group of 5 countries, Eritrea, Haiti, Laos, Myanmar and South Sudan, would face partial visa suspensions. The third group, which includes Belarus and Pakistan, would be considered for a partial visa suspension too, if, according to the memo, their governments, quote, do not make efforts to address deficiencies within 60 days. A U.S. official told reporters there could be changes on the list and that it was yet to be approved by the administration. When Trump took office on January 20th, he issued an executive order requiring intensified security vetting of any foreigners seeking U.S. entry. Tornadoes killed at least 33 people across several states in the U.S., Highway Patrol posted on X. Robbie Myers, the director of emergency management in Missouri's Butler County, told reporters that more than 500 homes, a church and grocery store in the county were destroyed. A mobile home park had been totally destroyed, he said. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves posted on X that 6 deaths had been reported in the state, 1 in Covington County, 2 in Jeff Davis County, and 3 in Whitehall County. According to preliminary assessments, 29 people were injured statewide and 21 counties sustained from storm damage, Reeves said. In Arkansas, 3 deaths occurred, the State Department of Emergency Management said, adding that there were 32 injuries. 26 tornadoes were reported but not confirmed to have touched down late on Friday night and early on Saturday as a low-pressure system drove powerful thunderstorms across parts of Arkansas, Illinois, Mississippi, and Missouri, said David Roth, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service's Weather Prediction Center. U.S. Appeals Court on Friday said the Trump administration could temporarily implement a ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at federal agencies and businesses with government contracts, which had been blocked by a judge. The Richmond, Virginia-based 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said the directives by President Donald Trump, including an order urging the Department of Justice to investigate companies with DEI policies, were likely constitutional, disagreeing with a February ruling by a federal judge in Maryland. But 2 of the 3 judges on the 4th Circuit panel wrote separately that they did not agree with the substance of Trump's orders and that agencies that implement them may risk violating the U.S. Constitution. Despite the vitriol now being heaped on DEI, people of good faith who work to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion deserve praise, not opprobrium. Circuit Judge Albert Diaz wrote. Circuit Judge Allison, Russian a Trump appointee, responded that her colleagues' policy views were irrelevant to whether Trump's directives should stand. A judge's opinion that DEI programs deserve praise, not opprobrium, should play absolutely no part in deciding this case, Rushin wrote. The decision in a lawsuit by the city of Baltimore and 3 groups will remain in place pending the outcome of the Trump administration's appeal, which could take months. The White House and the Justice Department did not immediately respond to the request for comment. A spokesperson for Democracy Forward, a left-leaning group representing the plaintiffs, said the decision was being reviewed. The orders are part of Trump's larger efforts to eradicate DEI initiatives, which he and other critics say are discriminatory from the government and the private sector. Hundreds of staffers at Voice of America, VOA, Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe, and other outlets received a weekend email that they will be barred from their offices and should surrender press passes and equipment, local media reported on Saturday. The court followed an executive order by U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday, which listed U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAGM, as part of unnecessary federal bureaucracy. USAGM, VOA's parent agency, employs about 3,500 staff and has an $886 million budget for 2024, according to its latest reports to Congress. The agency has severed all contracts for the privately incorporated international broadcasters it funds, including Radio Free Europe and Radio Free Asia, local media reported. VOA Director Michael Abramowitz said on social media that nearly his entire staff of 1,300 journalists, producers, and assistants had been put on administrative leave. The White House said the courts would ensure taxpayers are no longer on the hook for radical propaganda. Reports indicated that this decision is expected to face challenges as Congress, not the President, has the constitutional power of the pause. Trump administration has transferred hundreds of immigrants to El Salvador, even as a federal judge issued an order temporarily barring the deportations under an 18th century wartime declaration targeting Venezuelan gang members, officials said this on Sunday. Flights were in the air at the time of ruling. U.S. District Judge James E. Boasberg issued an order on Saturday temporarily blocking the deportations, but lawyers told him there were already two planes with immigrants in the air, one headed for El Salvador, the other for Honduras. Bosberg verbally ordered the planes be turned around, but they apparently were not, and he did not include the directive in his written order. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, in a statement Sunday, responded to speculation about whether the administration was flouting court orders. The administration did not refuse to comply with a court order. The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after terrorist TDA aliens had already been removed from U.S. territory. The acronym refers to the Tren de Aragua gang, which Trump targeted in his unusual proclamation that was released Saturday in a court filing Sunday. The Department of Justice, which has appealed Bosberg's decision, said it would not use the Trump proclamation he blocked for further deportations if his decision is not overturned. Trump sidestepped a question over whether his administration violated a court order while speaking to reporters aboard Air Force on Sunday evening. Portions of Pennsylvania, New York, and Mid-Atlantic and Southeast states were still under a National Weather Service watch for damaging wind and tornadoes as the death toll from weekend storms rose to 36 people across 6 states. In a White House statement, President Donald Trump said he was monitoring the tornadoes and storms, adding 36 innocent lives have been lost and many more devastated. Trump announced the National Guard had been deployed to Arkansas and pledged help to state and local officials. The storms that hit the South and the Midwest headed east on Sunday. More than 340,000 consumers had no power in the affected areas as of late afternoon on Sunday, according to the website Power Outage. Missouri reported the largest number of deaths, 12 fatalities spanning 5 counties, the state's highway patrol posted on X. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe said there was still one person missing in the state, which saw widespread destruction across 27 counties. Robbie Myers, the Director of Emergency Management in Missouri Butler County, told reporters that more than 5,000 homes, a church and a grocery store in the county were destroyed. A mobile home park had been totally destroyed, he said. Mississippi Governor Chat Rivers posted on X that 6 deaths had been reported in the state, 1 in Covington County, 2 in Jefferson Davis County, and 3 in Whitehall County. According to preliminary assessments, 29 people were injured statewide and 21 counties sustained storm damage, Reeves said. Maximo Napa Castro, who is 61, set off for what should have been a 2-week fishing trip from the coastal town of Macona on the southern Peruvian coast on December 7th. 10 days in, a storm blew his boat off course, leaving him adrift with dwindling supplies. His family launched a search, but Peru's maritime patrols were unable to locate him. It was not until Wednesday that the Ecuadorian patrol vessel Don F found him 1,094 kilometers from the coast, dehydrated and in a critical condition. Maximo survived by catching rainwater in his boat and eating whatever he could find. In an emotional reunion with his brother in Paita, near the Ecuadorian border on Friday, he described how 15 days were spent without food. Thinking of his family, we'll go on a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with the rest of our stories. Please stay with us. Separatist militants drove a vehicle laden with explosives into a paramilitary convoy, killing at least 5 in southwestern Pakistan, officials said on Sunday, just days after the same group hijacked a train and held hostages for 36 hours. The Balak Liberation Army claimed responsibility for the attack in the district of Nonshki and the Restif province of Balochistan. Senior Superintendent of Police for Noshki District, Hashim Muhammad, said more than 30 paramilitary force. Death toll from a militant hijacking of a train in Pakistan's southwestern mountains has risen to 31 soldiers, staff and civilians, the military said on Friday as it accused India and Afghanistan of backing the insurgents. The separatist Baloch Liberation Army, which claimed responsibility for Tuesday's attack, released a statement saying its fighters had escaped with 214 hostages and since executed all of them, without giving any evidence to back that up. Militants took over the Jafar Express in a remote mountain pass in Balochistan province, blowing up train tracks in the attack, then holding passengers hostage in a day-long standoff. Army spokesperson Ahmed Sharif said so to a close. He added there was nothing to suggest the BLA had taken other hostages from the scene. A final count showed 23 soldiers, 3 railway employees and 5 passengers had died in the attack and rescue mission, Chowdhury said, up from a previous estimate of 25 casualties. He added that Pakistan had evidence that India and Afghanistan had backed the insurgents, echoing accusations made by the Foreign Ministry after the attack. Both countries have denied the accusation. The separatist group released a statement in response to the army, saying it had killed all the hostages in its custody. Pakistani officials have accused the group of making exaggerated claims in the past. South Korea's opposition Democratic Party on Monday urged the country's constitutional court to swiftly rule on the President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment, saying keeping the country waiting is irresponsible and deepening social division. As the 8-member court continued deliberations well into the 3rd week, political tensions have surged between those who demand Yoon's ouster for declaring a short-lived martial law in December and supporters who want him reinstated. The court had wrapped up argument on February 25, where Yoon said his martial law declaration was needed to root out anti-state elements, but he never intended to fully impose emergency military rule. In 2017, a former president, Park Geun-hye, was removed from office 11 days after the final arguments in the Constitutional Court in her impeachment trial. South Koreans have gathered in huge numbers in the capital, Seoul, supporting and backing the conservative leader's removal, saying the delays has been frustrating and made confusion worse. Yoon was impeached by the Democratic Party-controlled parliament in December for violating his constitutional duty. He committed acts that are a grave threat to rule of law and more than disqualify him from office, the impeachment motion said. Yoon is on a separate criminal trial on charges of leading insurrection, which is punishable by death or life in prison. The fallout of Yoon's martial law declaration has widened the rifts between the conservatives and liberals and those in the public, adding stress on institutions and putting much of the government's policy making in limbo. Some of the country's top military commanders have been taken off duty and face criminals trials for their roles in their martial law decree. Arguments in the trial of former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hun on insurrection charges begin on Monday. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who was briefly acting president after Yoon was impeached and suspended from power on December 14, has also been impeached, and the country is now led by the Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok. Former South Korean defense minister charged with insurrection for his role in trying to enforce martial law defended his actions at the start of his trial on Monday and blamed wicked behavior by the opposition for triggering the political crisis. Prosecutors have accused Kim Yong-hyun, who resigned and is now detained, of conspiring with President Yoon Suk-yeol to stage insurrection through martial law over the opposition's control of parliament indictments against him show. Kim has denied wrongdoing and said imposing martial law was intended to raise alarm over the opposition's dominance and gather information related to election fraud concerns. Wicked behavior by the huge opposition party got worse. Kim, dressed in a grey suit and a turtleneck, told the court, citing the Democratic Party's moves to impeach multiple officials using its majority in parliament. Last December, President Yoon shocked the nation by declaring martial law, saying he wanted to root out the National Election Commission and sought to block access from outside, according to the indictment. Within hours, 190 lawmakers had defied cordons of troops, and police had voted down Yoon's order, prompting the president to rescind it. Yoon is also facing a criminal trial for insurrection, though he was freed from detention earlier this month. In addition, the president is waiting on an impeachment ruling expected in the coming days from the Constitutional Court to decide whether to remove him from office. Thailand has approved 90.9 billion baht, which is approximately $2.7 billion worth of investment in data centers and cloud services. Its investment board said on Monday the latest addition to the country's expanding tech sector. The projects include data centers from China's Beijing Huayang Cloud and Data Technology Center O2, it said. Beijing's Hanyang plan in Thailand includes a 300-megawatt data center. AI boom has led to a rush to build infrastructure in Southeast Asia, including data centers that house computers, servers, and equipment that companies use to process and store data. 6.8 billion baht, according to the investment board. Last year, Alphabet Incorporated Gulf nightclub as two flares spat while sparks into the air. Some had been issued illegally, and that they had reason to suspect that, quote, graft and corruption were involved without providing details. He promised those responsible would face justice and declared 7 days of national mourning. Germany's Parliamentary Budget Committee on Sunday approved plans for a massive increase in state borrowing aimed at bolstering defense and reviving growth in Europe's biggest economy. The committee convened for an extraordinary session and backed the plans agreed on Friday between the conservative CDU, CSU, the Social Democratic and the Greens, sending them on to Parliament for adoption. The bill, which includes a 500 billion euro, which is approximately new one, is due to convene on March 25, following an election. At the time, he did not see retirement age as the only path for reforming the pension system, he said. If unions and employers fail to agree to proposals, the government plans to proceed with implementing the 2023 reform. President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday appointed Major General Andriy Ignatov as Ukraine's chief of the general staff as Kyiv seeks to speed up army reform. A decree published on the presidential website said General Ignatov, a deputy chief of staff, would replace Lieutenant General Anatoly Bahilevich. We are consistently changing the armed forces to make them even more combat ready. To achieve it, we are changing the management system and introducing clear standards, Defense Minister was raising through the ranks from Marines Brigade Commander to leading troops in the eastern Donetsk region. Bahilevich would now oversee military standards and strengthen discipline in the army, the minister said. With the war against Russia in its fourth year, Ukraine is seeking to restructure and strengthen its military as it fights the much bigger enemy. Ukraine is on the back foot